What's up there, my friends? Well, where do I start? I actually tried to start this video a couple minutes ago, and I was kind of coughing a little bit, so during the video I was saying, well, I'm not going to restart it, but then I ended up restarting it because that damn bong hit got the best of me, and I'm much better now. So here we are. And I'm going to talk about life. I'm going to talk about what it means to get older and try to make sense of the world, in my opinion, from one 44-year-old man. No, I'm not tripping or anything like that. I'm not drunk or, off my rocker here. Like, I have a lot of strange thoughts that go through my head, and all of you know that. But I start off by saying, you'll notice that, of course, I'm always styly D. I mean, look at my clothing. You can't beat that. And it's just because I know and basically create everything that's stylish in this world. If there's a style that comes out, whether it's in New York or Paris, London, anywhere, I have the final say on all of those styles. Even when people are wearing garbage bags on the runway. I wanted to talk just for a moment about what it means to be stylish. Look, I'm a Burning Man type mentality, okay? I like strange costumes. I like it when people dress up. But the thing is, I do it year round. I'm not just the person who just goes off to a party sometime and dresses weird. I'll wear my patch jacket with all these carp on it. And I'll wear it down to the store. I'll wear pajamas to drop the kids off. I care to an extent. But there's a part of me that, in spite of society, says I'm going to wear whatever the fuck I want. And I don't give a shit what you think. But there's also a part of me that is the philosopher that says, of course I care what they think. Of course. You have to. Because when you're young, a lot of folks, I should say when some are young, and when I was young, I did have the idea that I knew what was best and that, I would always be the way I was. And I've really stuck by that. I remember people said, well, you'll grow out of this stage, or you'll stop smoking pot, and you'll become this person or that person. And I said, I'm just going to be who I'm going to be. And I have remained that person up to this point. However, when you're young, you are more flexible, and you're more able to kind of change your ways. And I never did. I wanted to be the person I wanted to be. So I found myself resisting society more, pushing harder, and even wearing more extreme clothing. I was the skater, I was the hesher, I had the mullet, I went through all this shit. And it's really easy for us to forget who we were. But I was always interested in taking photographies and notes. And I wanted to mention this before I forget. This is what all of you need. What every single person on earth has to have. If you can write, if you are not illiterate, you should have a journal. I've got like 5 or 6, but this one I got on my birthday when I was 13 years old, I believe, because it says the first entry in there is from 1988. And I'm not going to go through the details of all the random shit in there, but about once a year I write in there. And you would think, well, eventually you'd fill it up, but it would take forever. Well, I'm getting there. I'm over halfway through, I think. And when you look back on who you were in the past, it gives you a good perspective on, holy shit, I was a fucking idiot. I was a stupid ass kid that didn't know a goddamn thing. And as you get older, you do get stuck in your ways a little bit. You do tend to get more rigid in your beliefs. And there's a good reason for that, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing. As I've gotten older, I've always, when I was younger, I would see the older generation and think, God, they're so stubborn. And then there was a part of me that said, but they're more experienced. Maybe there's something there that says, you learn some basic principles about life, and you realize it's not like you thought it was, right? There we go. My music was up a little louder than I wanted it to be. Oh, God damn it. That's real. So, I decided to have background music for the first time in a long time. It's Soohan, Soohan. He's a DJ that I asked him a couple years ago if I could put his music in my shit so I wouldn't get a copyright strike, because he's cool with it. He's like, go ahead. And so whenever I have permission to share music, I'll do it. If any of you are musicians and you'd like me to use music of yours in one of my videos, you can send it to me and I will. I'm more than happy to share everyone's music that I can, because I'm a musician, I get it. But I don't want to ever steal anybody's music. I'm very particular about writing my own music and never taking others. So that's why I don't even use those websites where you can go to for free pictures. You know, here's the one thing I want to say, and this is kind of tooting my own horn, right? But sounds wrong, tooting your own horn. Anyway, one of the things about my channel that I don't mention too often, and you probably all noticed if you're subscribers, is that when I make a video where, let's say, I edit a bunch of clips together and I show an adventure I did or a trip I took or something, I write the music. I write the songs for it myself. I do the editing myself. And I do it all on a really cheap program. But I also do the photographs and the clips and the clip art most of the time. But I've never been to one of those free sharing sites, and I get it. A lot of websites use those things because they're phenomenal. A lot of YouTube channels, they just, spend a couple grand on a bunch of, awesome pictures that make their video look great. And I guess what I'm saying in a nutshell is I'm grateful that y'all watch my channel, even though it's all just my random shit. And I'm glad that you've appreciated the art I've done, the things I've done. And, so back to the point at hand. As you get older, you really get rigid in your ways because you want to make sense of the world. And making sense of the world means you have to get stuck in your ways. I know that sounds pretty obvious to some, and also some are disagreeing completely. But you do it because you get confused about, like, you go through many phases if you're a thinker. And eventually a lot of people come to the conclusion that I just have to pick a religion or pick a political party. Those are two perfect examples. And stick with it and then back that up completely. To be in the middle is a painful thing. You are going to get shit from both sides. In other words, even as a... I'm not going to even talk about politics. I won't go there. But I actually really don't have much vested in politics, but whenever I bring up who I might vote for, or, Bernie Sanders, right? People are like, oh, you're a socialist, you're a, this or that, or a communist, or whatever it might be. And I'm like, well, wait, I'm not a, let's just say I'm not a groupie for any politician. I just say, well, let's try this, let's try this. Nobody knows shit. I'm more on the page of, let's just agree to disagree on what might work and say, let's give it a shot. Just like we gave everything else a shot. Being a human is complicated shit. That's what this video is about. Being a human is really hard. When I was talking to my kid earlier, I said this to my 10-year-old. He's in there playing Minecraft or Roblox or something right now. And I leaned up and I said, hey, Emerson. I said, it's funny. I said, humans are just animals with long-term goals. And he looked up and he goes, ha ha ha, that's true. And the funny thing about that is that my kid is a thinker. I mean, all my kids are deep thinkers. And I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying that sometimes it's really hard to deal with, because especially my 10-year-old, he tends to kind of get into his own head. But whenever he reacts to something like that, it's funny because he knows exactly what I meant. And it's kind of creepy how smart kids are these days. But anyhow, having kids has given me a perspective on life. And I've gone through many stages. So making sense of the world, for example, when I was younger is different than after I met my wife. And she had a 3-year-old son. And it's been 23 years, or 21 years since we met, and he's 25. And then we have a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old, and it's a pretty crazy ride. I mean, my wife and I haven't had freedom to just say, pick up and do what we want to do in 2 decades because of children. But we chose that, so we don't complain about it. I love it. I love having kids. Other people don't. Some people are horrible parents. They're like, they didn't want their kids. There are people out there who tell their kids they didn't want them. I mean, what kind of a fucked up, shitty parent are you? To ever, under any circumstance, tell your child you didn't want them. Even when you're pissed at them. And a lot of parents do. And I would say shame on you. You're a piece of shit to even say that to your kid. Because of how impacted we are. And I say that so strongly because I know how much kids are affected by what adults say to them when they're young. And they kind of may seem they're in their own world, but they're thinking just like we are, right? They're not dumb. They're kids, but they're not stupid. And I remember I was a kid. You know, I remember what it's like to be in school and have parents just, what the fuck is wrong with adults, you know? But I don't know, I feel like in today's world, growing up as a Gen Xer, if you will, it was a strange time. Sometimes people talk about generations in that terms of millennials, Gen Xers, baby boomers. I think that's all bullshit, because none of that matters. I mean, there's no real line of where you're a certain generation. But there are certain tendencies of Gen Xers to be ignored by the general population. It sounds weird, but I've noticed it. If you're in the, 40-ish age group, it's like there's really old people and there's really young people, but there are a lot less Gen Xers, statistically, but we were kind of forced to fend for ourselves. It felt that way. We were the He-Man generation, we were the G.I. Joe generation, and the My Little Pony generation. We got immersed in the heavy 80s commercials and the Hot Wheels and all this shit, the same shit from way back, but it was the last commercial generation on network television to where you were forced to be immersed in a certain narrative. And we had to learn to know ourselves. And we went and played outside. Like they say, kids don't play outside enough, and parents are afraid to let their kids play in the street. It's true. But you know what? Actually, crime has gone down. Murders have gone down. Statistically, all crime has gone down in this country over the last 30 years. Yet, people still are afraid to let their kids play outside. And so, the new generation, which I guess the millennial generation is known as, I guess, the protective generation, or, bubble wrap generation, where you're putting your kids in this kind of pedestal. Our generation fucked up by giving away participation trophies. The dumbest thing to ever be created. Look, you want to win a trophy? Win the goddamn game, right? That sounds harsh, but it's reality. And some would disagree, but we found that there's this kind of entitlement that a lot of people have out there, and it comes with being rewarded for just being alive. Being a human's hard, as I said at the beginning. So we have to find our own way and find out what makes us worthy as individuals. I'm still trying to find that. I'm 44 years old, and I'm trying to contribute to the world by making YouTube videos, and I think, how cheesy is that? I'm just talking to people. But then once in a while I get a comment from one of you. It just makes me think, holy shit, it just hits my heart so deeply. And it's not just that. I get emails from some of you, and I want you to know that I care deeply about everybody. I can't help it. And when somebody sends me an email, I don't always respond to my emails right away. I want to. I have kind of a, dare say, social anxiety. But when I'm talking to the lens of the camera, it's a completely different thing. So I feel like I'm in my element in here. And that's how I've learned myself over the last 10 years, is through the camera. So anyway, we think we know ourselves, but we really don't know ourselves as well as we would like until chaos strikes. And then we find out what we're really made of. And that could be any type of a pandemic. Ooh. It could be a meteor strike. It could be a volcanic eruption in your area, or a tsunami that wipes out your neighborhood. It could be a forest fire, like down in Paradise, California, or in Australia, or in any other number of places where fires have destroyed communities, or in Louisiana, where, so many things that have happened just get kind of brushed aside. But when these things happen, we learn who our neighbors are. We learn what people are really made of. And what I've seen is that people do care about one another. When chaos strikes, people band together. And there's been a moment of divide and conquer in this country because we've been too comfortable. So, and this, all makes sense to me in the end. The connection of getting older, you start getting stuck in your ways politically, and in so many ways. So I think it's important to kind of let go of who we think we are and open yourself up to the world. Write in your journal, it'll remind you how dumb you really are from when you were a kid. And get several of them. Make sure that you're always documenting. The last note I'd like to make is that you are an expert at everything you do. If you practice enough. No, I don't believe in that you can just be an expert overnight. But I made a video the other day, I never uploaded. It was when I was on a walk. And it was about, we don't give ourselves enough credit for what we really do. If we really are just animals with long-term goals, and I know a lot would just say, oh, that's nonsense, we're souls, or we're spirits, or any of that. Now, I'd really like to go into detail on that. I'm going to do an entire video on beliefs, religion, spirituality, but I haven't done one in quite a while because what's the point? People believe what they want to believe. I mean, I'm not here to break anybody's spiritual beliefs up. I have no interest in that, but there are certain things that have to be discussed, especially when people are buying, special quantum healing crystals for $500 that are supposed to save them, or wands for $5,000 that emit certain frequencies, or any of these bullshit devices that people are selling. I'm going to tell you all one thing. Every day is a new beginning to be a new person. We all wake up. We can decide to be who we want to be every day. And it doesn't matter where you've been. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter your financial circumstances or your spiritual beliefs or lack thereof. You can get up and choose to be who you want to be every day. And as cheesy as that sounds, it doesn't matter because it's true. And because of that, we can decide what we want for ourselves. And we can decide to be more flexible, decide that we want to follow the one tool we really do know. As much as we don't know about ourselves or the world, we might not know the right news story or the news channel, but we know one thing that's right here in our hearts. Our hearts. Our hearts. That's where it's at. It's not in our hearts, but I guess our hearts are in our hearts. You just know certain things. And there are people who will deny that and tell you, oh no, your heart's wrong. Often that's true. But you know what I'm talking about. And if you don't, well, I'm sorry you don't have that instinct, but we don't have a lot to go by in life. One of those things is our heart for other people. My feelings, my emotions go out to everybody I meet. And I hope that there is a future with where people care about one another more than they care about fighting with one another or being right. Anyhow, I'll talk to y'all later. Have a wonderful evening.